Thank you for being the first person to come on. This is our little segment that Irene and I brainstormed along with my mom. And basically what we decided to do is every week have a person featured from our club on Zoom and talk to them and get to know them a little bit better so that the club gets to see and hear from them, even though we're all kind of locked in because of coronavirus. And so
well, when I took over the management of Rancho Santa Fe, I interviewed every individual employee just to get some feedback to what the thing was all about. And I think this was a good idea on your part.
Well,
we get to know the players in our club.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I think that you were definitely top of my list because last time you and I were talking, we were talking about that Chevy truck that you're putting that new motor in. How's that coming along?
What was that?
The Chevy truck that you were working on last time.
Oh yeah.
How's that going?
Well, I've almost quit working on it, but my cousin's finishing it up. But it's real close. We got the motor running. I got a brand new engine in it. It's a 350, 400 horse, had a 6 in it, but we're working on it. We've got power brakes on it, and Chevy, Mustang 2 front end and back end with disc brakes. So we build them to drive, not just restore them.
That's right. That's what you're saying.
It's easier to get all the restoration parts.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So you got the engine in, you've got the power brakes and everything. So what's left on checking the boxes and getting that thing on the road?
The wiring and putting a seat and doing the upholstery inside. The rest is done.
You know, for me, whenever I'm working on my car, it seems that the wiring always tends to be what seems to be easiest when I start it, and then it's always the hardest by the time I'm done working on it. The wiring always gets messed up.
I did a 38 CN delivery 11, 12 years ago, and I didn't have this much trouble. This time we've spent hours on the wiring already, and we're getting close.
Now, is the motor that you put into the truck that you're building, is that a modern Chevy motor like that you bought from Chevrolet?
Oh, it's a 350 Chevy. It's built in the 90s.
Okay. So it probably doesn't have too many complex computer parts on it then that you have to worry about.
No, well, I actually had another 350 that I was thinking to put in that had a computer, but no, you actually in these you don't want computers. And you get better mileage, but it's got a 4-barrel carburetor and it's got 400 horse. That's big for a 350.
Yeah, and big for a pickup truck too. It doesn't weigh too much. It'll go pretty quick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It'll move down the road.
I was just thinking because you were talking about the motor being put in, and I forgot you had said it was a 350 from the 90s. A lot of people that I watch on TV that build these cars, they put LS motors, the new LS crate motors from Chevrolet, and they come with all these computer controls on them. And so you not only have to figure out how to put it into the car and mate it to the transmission and do all the wiring, but you also have to figure out how to map the computer to fit the car the right way. You can't just put it in these days.
Well, this squeezes into a 37 Chevy. It's a small Chevy V8. I'm not the smaller. It's not that they built a bigger one, but this one just gets in there. The distributor's almost hitting the firewall, and it just barely fits. And I got an automatic transmission, and I've shifted enough in my life.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, did that truck come stock with a manual and you swapped to the automatic, or was that an option from the factory back then, an automatic transmission for that truck?
I had a rebuilt transmission that I bought, and then I bought this crate engine for the Chevrolet 350. So just put it together and keep on going.
Okay.
To shorten the drive line.
Very nice.
Make it fit.
Okay. Your voice is just a little bit muffled, Lloyd. Would you mind moving?
Okay.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you again. Perfect. You must have just been covering the microphone or something. I can hear you perfectly again. So Liam, my little brother, he just turned 16, and we're looking for a car for him. And he was searching around on the internet, and he found on cars.com a 1969 Volkswagen Bug that he really wants to get for himself. It's electric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My dad had a similar model year when he was a kid growing up, and my
Oh,
brother,
he did.
yeah, he did, and
So there's a connection there.
there's a connection. And my dad still has his original book that he bought down at the or at the bookstore back in the day. It's called Volkswagen Beetle for Dummies, and
Oh,
so
okay.
it pretty much details exactly how to rebuild that car, even if you have no knowledge of automotive experience at all. And so,
Well, I went through all the dune buggy deals with the Volkswagen and had a couple of different engines,
mhm,
and they were fun. The kids, we used to get away for the weekend, and you didn't have all these cell phones, so
mhm,
you could go away the weekend and get away from your job.
yeah. Well, one of my favorite things to do, my best friend and Anthony and I, we like to go. You're familiar up Lone Pine up by Mount Whitney?
Yeah,
So we like to go up there because there's no cell coverage at all once you get up onto the mountain.
you get away from the phones.
Yeah, you can just turn the phone off for 3 days and off road and 4x4 in the Suburban. He has a big old Suburban from the
Well,
90s.
that's what we used to get by going to the desert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just get out there and we pitch a tent at the base of the mountain at one of the state park campgrounds, and then we just hike and four-wheel around for a little while. And it's actually surprisingly nice getting away from the cell phone and the technology. You can just clear your head a little bit, you know?
Yeah, well, if you want to come by anytime, you can take a look at where we are. I'm hoping to have it finished in 2 or 3 more weeks.
Oh, I'd be happy
Oh,
to.
I lost your picture.
Can you still hear me though?
Lori, Lori, the picture's gone.
What?
The picture's gone.
Oh,
Can you still hear me though, Lloyd?
can you still
She's-
hear me?
Huh? I hear you.
Okay, I can still see you. I've got
Oh,
your
you can still
picture.
see.
So you're still there. I think the camera just got moved around on your
Okay.
computer.
We're back.
We're
Yeah,
back.
don't touch
Good deal.
anything.
So where were we? Oh, you were talking about I could come by and see the truck sometime. I would love to come see that because Cruising Grand was canceled this year, so I haven't been able to see any of the classic cars out and about like I usually would during the summertime.
Yeah.
I'll bring you you remember I told you, I think last time we talked, my dad got that Land Rover Defender 90. Did I tell you about that?
No, I don't remember.
So
You told me.
last time you and I talked, I may have mentioned it. Maybe I told you about my grandfather's Cadillacs, but my dad back in 90, I want to say 1994 or 5, he was in the market to get a Land Rover, and Land Rover Colorado, Land Rover of San Diego, and Land Rover of, I believe it was Del Mar, all had allocations for a 1 of 500 run of Land Rover Defender 90s that year. And they had to make those cars, Land Rover did, because they were entering them into some kind of competition. They required them make a certain amount of customer cars
Yeah.
along with it. And so they had to make 500 of them. And so my dad went down and he put his name in the hat for the car. And basically what would happen is they would just spin the lottery wheel and pull your name out of the hat. If you
Oh, yeah, you told. I
Yeah.
remember a little bit now. Yeah.
yeah. So the guy ahead of him was actually out of town that day, and you had to be able to come down when they called you on the phone. You had to come down that day and pay for the car. Otherwise, you got skipped.
You lose. You're there or you don't, or you got to get there.
Yeah, and so they called my dad because he was next up, and my dad rushed down and he got it, and so we've still got it. It's got 37,000 original miles on it, and it
Oh,
looks
really?
practically brand new.
That was an expensive thing, and it still it was marked down for, I guess, because of the program they had it in. But that's
that car, he's actually gotten a pretty good return on investment with the car, because I believe in 1994 money he bought it for around $30,000.
that was a lot of money in 1994.
It was, yeah. But when you adjust it for inflation, it's still less than what it is. He's been looking at auctions at people who have sold their cars from that model run, and they're making close to $100,000 on the sale of them at auction, like at Mecum and stuff like that. Yeah,
I can understand why.
yeah. Hey, you're covering the microphone again or something, Lloyd. Can you move the computer a little bit?
I've never drove a Land Rover.
It's actually really nice. I would say it's a little bit more. So if you've ever driven a Jeep, it's similar, but it's got a shorter wheelbase,
Yeah.
especially on the two-door Land Rovers. So on the two-door Land Rovers, they have the same amount of seating room as a four-door Jeep, but you sit sideways in the back. So you
Yeah.
can sit 4 people sideways in the back
Okay.
on kind of a bench seat. And so
Yeah.
that allows them to have the axles closer to each other for better off-roading. And so it turns a lot easier, tighter turns because of the shorter wheelbase. And then the transmission is a little bit more jagged when you're going because it's meant to be able to crawl really easily up things. So you can, if you put it into 4-wheel low, if you put the gearbox into 4-wheel low and then you put it into first gear, you can
Yeah.
actually let your foot all the way off the clutch without engaging the throttle, and it'll actually climb up a hill without stalling itself. So
Shorter wheelbase, they usually don't ride as well as the longer wheelbase.
it doesn't. It actually is pretty bouncy. But it's good for off-road because especially out where we drive it in the desert, there's a lot of really pointy hills you'll go over, and you could get high centered really easily on a car with a longer wheelbase, but because it's so short, it just goes right over the top. But if you've driven a Jeep, it's very similar. Just probably a little bit more bumpy.
They're short wheelbase, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I'll bring you a picture of that when I come down to see your truck sometime. I'll bring you a picture of
Okay.
our Land Rover. It's really cool. It's what they call British racing green. So if you're familiar with the color that they used to race like Bentley and a couple other of the British car companies, when they used to do Formula One racing way back in the day, they used to race with this very dark forest green. It's called British racing green, and that's the color of the car.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool.
Okay.
So I was also going to ask you, because a couple of the questions the club members had last time we were in our meeting, I announced that I would be doing these interviews with people and then reporting back to the club what I learned when I talked to them. One of the things that I thought would be interesting to ask you that people might not know is that what I know about you is that you're our only charter member from when the club started. And I thought it'd be interesting to get your perspective of what Rotary was like when you were starting the club versus how it is now, and what you think about it.
Well, it was different. We had a strict attendance deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually, if you didn't show up, somebody called you and reminded you, and we took track and they kept the percentage. And I think we got to interact more with the members when the club started, and they were all new that was getting to know each other at the same time. And we bring a new guy in, and it's hard for him to really get squared away with all of us now. The women in it, is different. I'm not going to say it hurt or helped, but it's different.
Mm-hmm.
I know why they had to do it, but we had guys leave our club because of it.
Okay.
Somebody from the police department that your mother knows very well.
Oh boy.
He died now. He went up north.
Mm-hmm.
It was different, and that's about all I can say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was thinking the one thing that is really difficult right now that you mentioned is just the interaction with club members, is that because we have to be so locked down right now with not being able to see people in person, it's hard to
I think you're attacking it, but it's good time. You got some energy because this is a tough time for our Rotary Club, and it's hurting right now, really.
Yeah.
Keeping a club going.
Yeah.
So
it really.
I'm worried about that for a while. We were getting less than 20 showing up for the meetings most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it's hard and it's very difficult right now.
No, it certainly is. And so the one thing that I've been trying to do with our club meetings is really listen to what people have to say and what make it interesting and compelling for them. So what we've been trying to do and what I've found that's working is that we're doing these one week we'll go to Cocina del Charo for the people that would like to meet in person. We have an in-person meeting, and then the other week we're on Zoom. So I'm doing an every other week thing, which is actually working pretty well because I'm seeing members that aren't able to come to the in-person meetings show up for the Zoom meetings, and the people that don't necessarily like Zoom are showing up for the in-person meetings. So at least we're still able to get what people want to do a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's working out well. And I think one thing, I haven't mentioned this to the club, but my
Well,
mom,
the only complaint I heard about the meeting and outside, Steve told me it was pretty hot out there a couple of times.
that's right. Well, I've been talking to those guys about it when we're there, and they tell me that they got little misters that they can spray to keep it cool out there, and they have a fan. But every time I go there, I'm like, hey, where's the mister and the fan that you promised me? And they're like, I don't know where it went. I'm like, well, come on, we're hot. But
Spray would help.
What's that?
A little spray would help.
Oh yeah, it would. Well, one of our members, I forget who it was, showed up with spray bottles one day, like Mr. Spray bottles that we could spray on ourselves to keep ourselves cool, which was really nice. But one thing that I'm thinking about doing, and I've been talking to my mom about it, I haven't talked to the club yet, but I want to start maybe picking one day a week as well, that the people that can come to the in-person meetings, maybe we can do like a happy hour where like on a Wednesday or a Friday night, those people that are willing to go out of the house right now can come out for a happy hour I know O'Sullivan's Irish Pub is open for outdoor seating, and we could just like have a happy hour and just something that can engage the club members in a way that encourages fellowship with each other, but doesn't necessarily have the weight of a meeting behind it. I think that would be beneficial to everybody. Can you still hear me, Lloyd? Oh, I think you covered the microphone again.
I haven't changed anything.
There it is. I can hear you again, loud and clear.
I just picked up my hand, so maybe I did have it covered.
Maybe you did. Yeah. So you've got your truck almost settled, and we got through the questions I wanted to ask you regarding Rotary in the old days. I wanted to see, how's everything else going? How you holding up? What's new?
Well, it's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Very tough. I've been in a bad way for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to enjoy this last part of my life with my family. I have a special family.
Mm-hmm.
And I although they're coming to see me, Lori comes every day
Mm-hmm.
and sees me, but it's just tough. I want to get a little better if I can, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really, they can't get the water out of my legs. They're tight. They're so tight. They've been trying to get the water out of my feet and legs for 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They put me in the hospital and got it out once, but it's just bad. In fact, water is running out of my legs. They're trying to get it out of my body, and it's actually running right out of the side of my legs.
Mm. Well, I have to commend you though on staying positive, and also I think really staying focused on the goal of continuing to chase your passion of building cars and everything, because there's so many people when faced with tough roadblocks in life like this, or any kind of challenge that I know that would just kind of crumble under it, and to see that you're continuing to pursue your passion, especially as a motorhead myself, knowing that you're still out there building cars is really awesome to me.
Well, I had a good life and some big projects. I built the Dixon Dam.
Yeah.
In Escondido.
Uh-huh.
I built the first water plant, the treatment plant that Escondido had. I extended the sewer plant through the land and the outfall and the water and then Encinitas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually went to work originally for I was city engineer in Escondido, Public Works Director. I was city engineer in Encinitas. And then I was the manager of the Santa Fe Irrigation District the last 4 years of my work. I worked till I was 70.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired me originally to do a $30 million capital improvement. And I went to work about 2 or 3 months, and the assistant manager got fired, and the manager quit before he got fired. And so I talked to him. I said, well, I can come in. I said I could do one or the other, but I have to get somebody else to do. So they hired me as general manager for the last 4 years, and
Mm-hmm.
I saved them 10 million on the capital improvement project. And they were happy with that. And that was the first time that I'd ever got a bonus working for a public agency.
Okay.
And then,
Did you shut the lid, Hal?
yeah, it's, but then they made me the manager over there, and I was there 4 years, and they were pretty happy with me. And it was better than working for the city,
Mm-hmm.
because in the city tries to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
Over there, I was just doing water and specialized. You get them water, and you get it regularly, and you get it cheap, and that's your goal, and it's easier to focus. And they were doing a good job.
So when you look back on it, on all those different projects that you were looking after and getting done, what do you think, out of all of those you mentioned, what do you think is the most challenging one of all of them that you did? What was the hardest one to get done?
Well, I don't know. A lot of it was difficult when you had to deal with the state that was interpreting the United States regulations. The state was interpreting the regulations on because we got grants from the federal government on the treatment plant and on the outfall sewer. So they made it tougher going through the state. If you were dealing directly with the ones that did the loan, you had a better luck than when you have somebody else interpreting on the way. So those were long projects because of just dealing with the processing, the plans and stuff. But the best job I ever had was Rancho Santa Fe. So
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was happy there. The employees were not the highest level, because some of them had actually been there a long time and just got raised up.
Mm-hmm.
But they tried, and I just tried to help them. And I did a little more work than I could have if I had somebody a little more qualified in some areas. But
Yeah.
they would kill for me. I got better as a manager. I started managing people when I was 20 years old. I managed the garbage pickup. They used to have wet garbage twice a week was picked up before
Okay.
all the garbage disposal. And I managed the garbage pickup in in LA County, in the city, Glendale,
Okay.
for a few years. And that was busy times. But the best job I had was with Rancho Santa Fe. It
Yeah.
was the easiest. The job with some of those others were a little tougher.
Yeah, I know that for my
It's
dad.
tough to get the easement through all the way to the coast and then out in the ocean, because the people living on the coast didn't want our sewer coming through there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know, it's my dad, when I talked to him about his career working for the city as a police officer, when he made it to captain, he oftentimes would have to present the city with a budget for the police department and explain to them how and why the money was being spent. And sometimes he would run into the problem of presenting it to the city or the state why they needed to buy something, and they just didn't understand why he needed it, even though he had the evidence to show why he did. And so even if he was, one time he told me that he went to them and expressly showed them how he was going to save them money, but they still turned him down because they thought they had a better idea than him on how he should do his job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know what you mean when you can say that that working with the state can be a little harder at some points.
Well, I went through that with the agencies. I worked about 25 years for an agency. I was a general engineering contractor for about 20 years too.
Mm-hmm.
So in the middle, after we had 3 kids, and the youngest one, Sandy, kept wanting a baby sister. She finally gave up. Well, 15 years, another one popped out. And after my wife started speaking to me again, it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Very
As
nice.
we got younger, I quit this city of Escondido. I was public works director, and started my engineering company. I mean, my general engineering contracting company.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been around. My kids used to say, "What are you going to be when you grow up?"
You're just bouncing around and still trying to figure out what you're going to be. And now you're a Chevy truck builder expert. That's your current job title, right?
Pretty much.
Well, very, very nice. Well, Lloyd, I don't want to keep you too long, but I did want to say thank you for coming on and meeting with
Okay.
me, because I
No,
wanted.
I think this is, I told you before, but I'm going to tell you again. I think this was a good idea for you to interview, to get to know the members better, and you know what they're looking for.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. And I want to remind you, tomorrow we actually, I don't know if you were able to see any of the emails that I sent out over the last couple of weeks about what the board decided, but we are going to be sponsoring a project that the Rotary Club of Chula Vista is working on an international grant for. And they are partnering with a club in Honduras for giving some money to train teachers in a local community in Honduras to better give the children there primary education. Because what they're finding is that these children in this community, if they don't receive a good education in school, they're going off and joining gangs and joining big gangs like MS-13 rather than getting their education. And so tomorrow, one of the people who's heading up that project with the Chula Vista Sunrise Rotary Club is going to come meet with us on Zoom for our meeting tomorrow, and she'll be our presenter talking to us about that international project we're getting involved with.
Okay.
So I sent out the link, and I'll send out another one, and Lori can probably help you get set up on that, but we would love to see you there tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that does it, Lloyd. I won't keep you too much longer, but really thank you for coming, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Okay.
See you later.